as most of my audience on here are people that read fantasy, I assume there is some in here that write fantasy as well. I thought I'd share a few of my favourite books that are on writing, mostly around the subject of fantasy, but some of these can apply elsewhere, but mainly just fantasy. Before we get into the video, make sure to like and subscribe and do all that kind of stuff, and let's get into it. So my first book that I'd like to recommend is one that is one of the first ones I kind of read, but it's always stuck with me, and it's called 2K to 10K by Rachel Aaron. And initially, it does sound like it's how to write more, and yeah, the kind of like clickbaity, um, how to do more, and like you may think, oh yeah, but you'll lose quality in writing if you just trying to burn out loads of words, and that's not what it does. It's all about how to efficiently plan your novel. So when it comes to the writing, you're not hung up on the it's just the general like tidbits and stuff that you would normally get stuck on. It's definitely helped me focus more on getting my planning done in advance and being aware of what scene am I going to write today, how can I make this scene interesting, and one of the major takeaways, like, without giving away most of the stuff here, but one of the main bits here is just how to understand whether the scene you're writing is important or not. Because sometimes I'll get to a scene and I'll go to write it and I'm struggling to get through this particular bit. And sometimes you just need to take a step back and just think, is this scene important to the plot? Yes. Okay, so how can I make this scene more interesting, not only for the reader, but for me writing it? And I can just like think up some ways to make this scene more enjoyable. Some other things is just about planning and just general tactics to help you concentrate more whilst you're doing your writing and just to get more done in a way. But yeah, it doesn't fall into that kind of clickbait thing because I know it sounds like that from the title of it, but it's actually really helpful and I do recommend. I would show you it, but I read all my stuff on ebooks because I can highlight stuff and keep those highlights. I think I've got a post about it on my website about how to like transfer your highlights and keep them all organized and stuff. I'll leave a link for that down below the video. For the second book, this one is called On Writing and World Building by Timothy Hickson, which you might recognize the name. I don't know if you've come across this person before, but they've got a YouTube channel called Hello Future Me, which you've probably heard of, and they do all writing videos and just analyzing stuff like that. And his world building book, it's a volume one. It's very good. It's like I said, this one's more focused on fantasy and the kind of ins and outs of creating protagonists, antagonists, just world building in general, magic systems, and he uses examples to kind of back up what he says and kind of analyzes some of them within the book, just like he does on his YouTube. But I feel this book is very interesting and helpful for when you're writing fantasy. There's some sci-fi bits in there as well, but it's mostly kind of fantasy. But it's very, very interesting and definitely worth a read. I do recommend. I'm currently about 80% of the way through, and I need to recommend it because it's that good. For my third book, I'd like to recommend On Writing by Stephen King. This one's a classic when people talk about books on writing. It's just amazing. You need to read this once in your life if you want to be a writer. And I don't want to be one of those people that kind of like say that people know better, but I just do like the idea of having a book written by a writer as well known as Stephen King, and just some of the tips he gives and the kind of general writing advice is just very helpful, and it's just something that I feel like everyone should read at least once. Even if you don't like it, you'll gain a few bits and pieces that might be useful to you. And like I said, it's by such a famous author, and it's quite useful because it's definitely got those tips that you need. For my fourth book, this is The Art of Language Invention by David J. Peterson. And if you don't know this one, I'm pretty sure this is the book written by the person that helped create the Dothraki language for the Game of Thrones kind of TV show and helped bring that to bring that to life. And it's just about how your languages work and how to create a fictional language, which I think is really helpful, especially when doing fantasy, because having other languages, although you don't need to include them, but it helps a kind of fantasy world feel more diverse, and you have different cultures within, which makes it more realistic and more kind of expansive in a way. And I really like this book. I do recommend it. It's just a helpful tool to be able to go back to and have a look at and understand how you can construct this language to help broaden your fantasy world. Not only that, but sometimes I like to use it for D&D because I can help just structure pieces of a language I can come up with. And yeah, even if you're not using it for writing, there are some other uses for it which people might like. So, a quick summary. We've got book 1, which is 2K to 10K by Rachel Aaron. This one is just about speeding up the amount you can write and like increasing the amount you can write per day, but it's mostly in your planning side and how you can save loads of time there. And so when you come to your writing, you can understand exactly what you want to get down and how you can make each scene interesting and like basically shorten the amount of time you're sat there thinking, debating where you should go next and how you can make this scene better. For the second book, we've got On Writing and World Building by Timothy Hickson, and this one is more on the fantasy world building side with your key parts like magic systems, protagonists, antagonists, how some of the world mechanics play, and just a general tool, which I really think you should consider picking that one up. For the third book, this is just a general book on writing, and this is called On Writing by Stephen King, and this one's a very good addition to your shelf. And the fourth one is The Art of Language Invention by David J. Peterson, and this one's more about fantasy languages and how to construct a language from scratch through analysing some others. I hope those have helped. I'll leave links for them all down in the description below. And thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and do all that kind of usual stuff. I'll leave a video either side of me for the Witcher reviews that I did. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.